Hello and welcome to Minnesota Made 2020. On behalf of all of us at the Minnesota Land Trust, I want to say thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Chris Larson, Executive Director of the Minnesota Land Trust, and I'm joined here by Glenn Flatibow, who is an absolute rock star in the world of nonprofit events. Glenn and I are going to tag team hosting this event tonight, and we're looking forward to sharing the Land Trust story with you over the next half hour. But before we get started, Glenn, not only do I want to thank you for helping to make Minnesota Made such a great success over the past years, but I want to thank you for being a believer in the Land Trust and actually being a personal donor to the Land Trust.
Chris, I am delighted to be here tonight. I love this organization. I love your mission. I am pleased to support the Land Trust tonight. We're going to have a great night. I will share with everyone at home, I grew up on a farm in Kaneohe County. Some of the most joyful days of my life are spent on those farms. I also own a piece of land on the South Shore of Lake Superior that I cherish deeply. And I think this moment of time has reminded us the importance of great outdoor spaces. So number one, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for your support. You can bid on our action items until 8:30. In a little bit, we're going to highlight those action items. But before we do, Chris, I think you're going to tell us a little bit more about the Land Trust.
Yeah, I recognize that many folks watching tonight might be new to the Minnesota Land Trust. So let's start though first with another little bit of trivia. How many land trusts do you think there are in America?
So I do a number of Land Trust events in other states. I'm going to guess 700.
Yeah, you're close. You're getting close. It's 1,500 land trusts around the country today. And the first one was formed in Boston way back in 1891. That's when two parallel tracks were created on how we deal with land in America. The first track, think the government route, that's national parks or state wildlife areas. The other track, nonprofit land trusts. And no matter where you go in the country, there's a land trust there sharing the simple mission to safeguard our great outdoors, whether it be our farmland, our natural environment, or our cultural legacies. It's everything that we need for our life support systems. The Minnesota Land Trust started in 1991 as the homegrown Minnesota version of this long-standing tradition. Some forward-thinking Minnesotans got together in Afton to form the Minnesota Land Trust because they were concerned. They saw how quickly forests, farmlands, and lakeshore across the state were disappearing to development and eroding our quality of life. And they knew that if they didn't act, no one would. Land trusts are essential institutions because the threats to our land are very real, and they're growing. For example, we lose an acre of natural habitat in the United States every 30 seconds. That's 1 acre every 30 seconds gone forever. And we lose more than 40 acres of farmland every hour. And Glenn, you just mentioned you grew up in farm country and love to hunt and fish, I know, and you love to spend time outside. So here's a related trivia question for you. How many birds do you think we've lost since 1970?
No, the pressure's on because I didn't guess very well last time. I'm going to guess 15 million.
15 million. Okay, well, you're off again just a little bit. We've actually lost more than 3 billion birds, that's billion with a B,
Wow.
since 1970 in the US alone. That's 30% of our bird life gone. That's just one example how we've grown out of balance with our natural world. You may have heard David Quammen recently. He just wrote a book about this imbalance. And when asked if he feels we can reverse this downward trajectory, he said, "I'm not an optimist by nature, but I'm stubborn when it comes to hope." And I like that because land trusts by their nature are stubborn when it comes to hope. Our mission is to protect and restore those things that Minnesotans need, like clean water, wildlife habitat, outdoor recreation, and scenic beauty. We're a non-advocacy group that gets things done on the ground, and we do this through 3 main program areas. Our mantra is protect, restore, and engage. Over the past 3 decades, we've protected some of our most special places, like our famous lakes, our tallgrass prairies, our vast forests, through more than 600 real on-the-ground projects to preserve land forever. We're Minnesota's go-to organization when it comes to private land protection, as we hold 97% of conservation easements held by nonprofits in Minnesota. And when it comes to restoration, we take damaged lands and bring them back to health through dozens of projects every year by restoring grasslands, wetlands, or forests. And restoration is critical because even if we could protect every last square inch of the nature that we have left in Minnesota, it's not enough. We've already lost 99% of our prairies and more than half of our wetlands. We need to bring back more natural lands to restore our balance. Finally, we believe in engaging the next generation of conservation leaders because in a society where kids spend 7 to 10 hours on screens every day and only 7 to 10 minutes playing outside, we're headed in the wrong direction. If there's anything in the past few months has taught us, it's just how important the outdoors are to restoring hope and happiness in our lives. In short, the Minnesota Land Trust is one of the players responsible for helping to preserve our local quality of life, as well as the delicate balance of our global life support systems. No matter where your favorite place is in Minnesota, we'd likely have projects there to help keep it special. And one of those special places is the city of Duluth. We've been busy helping to preserve the city's vast green space, developing one of the best trail systems in the country, and transforming the St. Louis River from a century of decay to a rich community asset. So it's my great pleasure now to introduce Emily Larson, Duluth's mayor and friend of the Land Trust, to share a few words with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Duluth Mayor Emily Larson. I was hoping we could be together for Minnesota Made because it's such a fun event. But I'm proud to be here to share with you a little bit about the Land Trust from my perspective. I have learned in the role of mayor that you always lead with your values. People can always pick you apart on what you do or how you invest in something, but they cannot come after you for your values. Those are non-negotiable. What I've learned about the Land Trust is that they have three primary values, every single one of them non-negotiable. They are to protect and to restore and to engage. I have seen incredible action on every front as it relates to these three steps. In terms of restoration, I've seen the St. Louis River and Chambers Grove. We now have wild rice in places we didn't. And just last weekend, I was out watching the pelicans with my family at Chambers Grove. When it comes to protection, we have DNAP, the Duluth Natural Area Program, and tax forfeit lands that have created an entire network, hundreds of miles of trails across the city that are available to everybody. In fact, in the city of Duluth, every single resident lives within 1,000 feet of the trail. And that brings me to engagement, because here in Duluth, we believe that those trails are good for everybody. And it's programs like bridging the adventure gap, making sure that it's not just a kid whose family has time to drive them to a trailhead and has a bike rack. It's every kid gets out. Every kid has a chance to rock climb and paddle and get outside, because we know that that's good for us. So I'm here to ask for your support for Minnesota Land Trust, but I'm also here to say thank you to Chris, to the team, to everything that you're doing. It makes a difference. And right now, during a pandemic, people are seeing the outdoors as a respite. People are using the outdoors to rediscover themselves. People are finding that when you connect to the outdoors, you have that ability to slow down and tune in ways that are meaningful and important. So I hope this finds all of you very well, very healthy, and very able to give and support the Minnesota Land Trust. Until next time, be well.
Thank you, Mayor Larson. If you were at our event a couple of years ago, you know that Mayor Larson stole the show. Thank you for showing your leadership and your commitment to the Land Trust. As you heard from the mayor, this work is essential to our quality of life and our balance in Minnesota. Tonight, you're going to have a number of options to support us. On the website, there's a donate button. You can also make a donation on our auction website on the Greater Giving platform as well. But before we get into our auction items, Chris, I think you're going to share a little bit more about why tonight's important to us.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. You know, like all of us, I've been reflecting on what brings us meaning in this changed era. Among so many things, this time has helped us quiet a lot of the noise in our daily lives. We focus down on some core issues. You know, are our families okay? How are we getting food? Will we have enough toilet paper? And given this, I have been absolutely struck by the immense importance so many of us have placed on getting outside. Our natural lands in Minnesota give us so much that is fundamental to our lives, like clean water, fresh air, and abundant wildlife. But they also bring us something else that I believe is just as fundamental. Our natural lands bring us smiles, they bring us memories, and they bring out our better selves. I've also been reflecting on how blessed we are that people before us made significant investments in our parks and wildlands. As many of you know, one of those people was Horace Cleveland, who believed that parks are the lungs of the city, which would help address the health crisis of his day, which was tuberculosis. In February 1872, Cleveland came to Minneapolis to give a lecture on the importance of preserving open spaces in rapidly growing cities. Even 150 years ago, open space was an issue. This turned out to be a pivotal moment not only in his life, but in the history of Minnesota. Cleveland believed that someday we would need these parks and open lands, and how true his vision has proven out to be. So we can only partially thank Cleveland and the countless others who have preserved land more than a century ago for our hope and smiles today. We also have to thank those early founders of the Land Trust and forward-thinking landowners like John and Linda Peck. If you've met the Pecks, you'll agree with me, I think, that they are truly special people. John and Linda bought an old farmhouse on the banks of the Sauk River near St. Cloud more than 50 years ago when John was a professor at St. Cloud State and Linda was a specialist in the rehab of injured wildlife. Over the years, they have educated thousands of students and nursed countless of animals back to health. But their biggest impact, perhaps, was on the land itself through their decades-long effort to heal the damaged landscape around them. Though living a very humble lifestyle, they personally dedicated themselves to protecting and restoring hundreds of acres of marginal farmland, transforming their entire area into a rich oasis of tall grass prairie and oak savanna. What's even more impressive is that the Pecks ultimately donated much of their property to the county as a natural park. So now many Minnesotans will have the opportunity to find their own respite and healing in this beautiful gem on the Sauk River. John and Linda are truly amazing, but they're not alone. Just downstream, Kenny and Judy Clare are connected to the Pecks by more than the Sauk River. They're connected by their passion for their land and their selfless acts to protect it. Kenny has lived his whole life on their farm, and Judy grew up close by. So they've seen the decades of unplanned growth that has crept towards the property and threatened the livelihoods of the farmers around them. The Clares are farmers, and they make their living off the land. But the Clares also understand the need for a natural balance and the importance of leaving a legacy. As they work the land, they carefully leave portions of their property to wetlands, forests, and grasslands. Their approach to balance and diversity in their farming operations is really an old one. It's how generations before them approached the sustainability of their land, but it's also the wave of the future. With more than half our waters in Minnesota being impaired, we need more Clares in the world, managing their land in a manner that benefits all of us, protecting it for future generations. Let's hear it a little from these wonderful salt of the earth conservation heroes.
When you look at a state like Minnesota, over 76% of the land is privately owned.
So there's a real role for private lands conservation, and the land trust is well positioned to come in here and work with other partners to serve that population.
And that work is necessary if we're to protect the waters and natural places we all cherish. The families that work with the land trust to protect their land are really creating a public benefit for all of us.
Our grandkids love it here. They take the four-wheeler out and go on the trails and check out the pumpkin plot, and they just have a really good time, and it makes great memories.
It's nice to be able to say that attachment and have that piece of land be what you always remembered it was as you go on.
It's long-term peace of mind.
The hundreds of families that have protected their land through the land trust have created a legacy of conservation for our state that will live on forever.
I'm blown away by the generosity of your landowners. I personally know many of them, and as a Minnesotan, I feel so grateful for their personal sacrifice on our behalf. This is what individual commitment to the next generation looks like, making personal choices to benefit the future. Chris, you and I have talked about this. One of the landowners that put an easement on their farm, I know personally the Strands from Kandiyohi County, my home area, they put an easement on a beautiful 400-acre farm right next to Sibley State Park. They chose to do this for the next generation. It is remarkable.
Yeah, they're great landowners, and there's a quote that I like to say to this. You've heard me say this in our events before, but foresters often say the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago. The second best time is now. So let's not keep putting off the decisions, and let's go right now, because we know that we're out of balance right now, and the contamination of our waters tells us that, climate change tells us that, and this current virus tells us that. So what do we do? What investments do we need to make? There is so much to do, but I would argue that one of the best investments we can make right now is in land, and it's local. Land is the answer to so many issues. Scientists have predicted that we need to protect up to 30% of the land base in the U.S. in the next decade, by 2030, to curb climate impacts and species loss. And we're only at 12% right now. So we need to act with urgency and more than double the pace right now. Fortunately, the Minnesota Land Trust has more projects lined up today than ever before. We have more than 100 land protection, restoration, and engagement projects that are ready to go right now. That makes it hard to pick a favorite, and they're all great, but I'd like to tell you about 5 special projects that stand out this year that we can accomplish with everyone's help. If we can get these projects across the finish line, we'll have moved the needle on finding balance with nature across the state. First, let's talk trout, heritage brook trout in particular. Many of you know how great southeastern Minnesota's blue ribbon trout streams are, but there are a few select streams which are unique in Minnesota because they host heritage brook trout. These native brook trout represent the genetic population that historically evolved and adapted specifically to these streams of the Mississippi Blufflands. This year, we will launch a whole new program with Trout Unlimited, the Nature Conservancy, Trust for Public Land, and local partners geared at protecting these streams to keep their waters cold and allow these heritage brook trout to thrive. Second, we're trying to maintain the balance of our native species. You already heard me say that we've lost 3 billion birds since 1970, and that's definitely not balance. Fortunately, we have dozens of projects that will restore habitat for birds and other species, like our project on Interstate Island in the St. Louis River in Duluth. You might have heard us talk about Interstate Island before because we just finished phase 1 of this project in April. This island is one of only 2 nesting sites for the common tern in all of the Lake Superior Basin. This little bird returns to the small island every year, all the way from South America to hatch its young. But it has a problem. The island is slowly disappearing due to climate impacts, which have dropped the tern population to dangerous levels. To solve this, the Land Trust and our partners are restoring the island and providing more area for this important bird to recover. Now, with your help, we can accomplish the final phase of this project next fall and celebrate an important milestone in efforts to reverse the trend of species loss. Third, as with Kenny and Judy Clare, we need to find balance within our agricultural lands. And nowhere is this more important than in southwestern Minnesota and the Minnesota River Basin. This area of the state has the least amount of natural land cover left. And yet this region is critical for the state's pheasant and duck populations, as well as for the health of the Minnesota River. Fortunately, this year we will kick off our first ever conservation project in the windswept Prairie Coteau and the historic waterfowl mecca of Heron Lake, fulfilling our promise to serve every region of the state. So hunters, bird watchers, anglers, and others all will benefit by a long-term commitment to working with farmers in the region to protect and restore grasslands, wetlands, and river bottoms. Fourth, for those of you in the metro, we continue to work with Washington County, Hennepin County, and others on slowly building the conservation networks of tomorrow. This has been our most productive region, with more than 150 individual projects completed to date in the metro area. Like the famous chain of lakes that Cleveland helped envision, we're slowly connecting these areas together into a larger whole. We have another 15 projects we hope to complete this year alone with your help, which will mean even more trees and more clean water and more kids outside. And finally, with your help, we can slowly restore the balance to our planet. I'm really thrilled to share with you tonight that in the Northwoods of the Arrowhead region, we have the unique opportunity this year to complete the largest project in the history of the Minnesota Land Trust. The Land Trust and our partners, the Conservation Fund in St. Louis County, have a plan in place to protect more than 5,000 acres of wildlife habitat, which is home to bear and deer and moose and wolves, that all will be open to the public use and enjoyment. But this forest, which represents an area nearly 3 times the size of Gooseberry State Park, it's also storing carbon through the trees, their roots, and the soil. Land-based projects like this can account for 1/3 of the needed reductions in the U.S. to meet our climate goals. And to protect this property at this scale is truly an unprecedented opportunity for the Land Trust. So Glenn, these are just 5 out of dozens of real on-the-ground projects that we can get done this year and give future Minnesotans the hope and happiness that can only be found in nature.
Chris, that's amazing. You have projects lined up that protect species, clean our water, store carbon, and will provide places to play that will benefit the entire state. What is the barrier to getting this done?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, and I'll answer that with another trivia question. So what % of charitable giving in the U.S. do you think goes to conservation?
I'm going to take a crack at 10%.
Yeah, it's not a bad guess, actually, but I wish it were that high.
Yeah.
The reality is that less than 1% of all philanthropic giving goes to conservation. Across the country, conservation continues to pull as one of the greatest priorities of Americans. Everyone's for it. We love our parks and our open space, and yet at less than 1%, we clearly don't prioritize it in our giving. And still, I believe we can beat this trend in Minnesota. Why? In addition to being stubborn with hope, it's because we value our great outdoors so much. It's part of our core identity. Let's hear it from a few of your fellow Minnesotans about what being outside means to them.
When I go outside, I feel fortunate to live in a place where high-quality natural resources are close to home, easily accessible, and widely appreciated. It makes me feel good inside.
When I go outside, I feel like I'm having an adventure.
When I'm outside, I feel relaxed. I love watching the seasons change and watching nature change along with it.
When I'm outside, I feel energized.
I like looking for rocks.
When I'm outside, I feel super alive and reinvigorated. Just the fresh air and the beauty of nature just wakes me up inside.
Being outside makes me happy because I get to look at the trees.
I feel relaxed and happy outside because I can hear the sounds of Amity Creek and Lester Park.
When I'm outside, I feel free because I'm my most myself when I'm outside.
When I go outside, I unwind. I use the outdoors to escape the stress of everyday life. And if I can't get away, invite a bit of it to my backyard.
Climbing on trees.
When I go outside, I feel joy. Joy because I'm most likely on 2 wheels, and anytime I'm on 2 wheels, I'm having a good time.
When I go outside, I get inspired. I really enjoy being out in my garden, seeing what's coming up, seeing what needs to be pruned, talking to the neighbors. I lose track of time. It's great.
When I'm outside, I feel grateful to live next to a magnificent lake, Lake Superior.
And I love being outdoors to jump in Lake Superior.
When I'm outside, I feel inspired to write.
The outdoors is a place for kids to be free.
When I go outside, I feel inspired. There's so many great things to do out here.
I just love those. And clearly, we need the outdoors in our lives, in good times and in bad. Fortunately, there have been people like Horace Cleveland, John and Linda Peck, and Kenny and Judy Clare who have generously made preserving them part of their life's mission. Now it's our turn.
Chris, this is the moment that we can make the greatest difference together. Right now, as you've said, there's 100 projects lined up in the state of Minnesota, and the only barrier is between us and funding to make these happen. My friends, this is the Fund a Need giving moment. Every gift that you make will allow us the resources to tackle these programs and these projects. Let me first say to everyone, and this is a big deal, Chris, because of the public match, every gift that's given privately tonight will be matched up to $15.
Yeah, this is a big deal, and it's something I tell a lot of donors, just because every private dollar we get can turn into $15 of leverage. So when it comes to, nonprofit leverage, that's one of the best I've ever heard of. So every dollar turns into $15 of public money and landowner donation, and that really gets us to accelerate our work greatly across the state.
We also need to thank a few families that have come forward tonight with signature gifts. We have Colleen Carey and Pam Endine. They're giving $20,000, a remarkable gift. Strong supporters Ted and Angie Erickson, they're giving $15,000. Ned and Sherry Ann Dayton are giving $5,000, and Willie and Markel Rahr are giving $5,000. Thank you to all of those families. Remarkable generosity. Chris, there's another special match, though, that I was moved by when we were planning this event. A woman came forward to support us in a unique way tonight, and I want you to share with everyone what Lori Lucas is doing.
Yeah, there's all these wonderful gifts you mentioned, people that have already contributed, which is fantastic, and that kind of preloads us and gets us going. But Lori Lucas in particular knows how important this event is to generating new donors for us. And if we know one thing, we need more people investing in conservation. Back to my 1% statistic I mentioned earlier. And Lori lives in Southeast Minnesota in Winona. She loves that region, and she just wants to see us accelerate and grow and tackle all those problems that we talked about earlier.
So Lori's going to match every new donor dollar for dollar tonight up to $10,000. So if you're watching from the home and this is the first time that you've given to the Land Trust, if you give $1,000, it'll mean $2,000. If you give $500, it'll mean $1,000. A very special thank you to Lori for doing this. It's a big deal. It's a huge opportunity. Thank you for your generosity and your support. I think everyone at home right now, we're all pledging and bidding, right? Yes, we are. We're all pledging and bidding. So thank you again for your support tonight. Let's see if we can break a record and accomplish these 100 projects. Thank you for your support. All right, everybody, we've come to our final part of our program tonight. It is our premier auction segment. Chris, I have done many of these virtual events in the last 2 months, and I do have to say, your auction items are my favorite grouping of items. You have some remarkable items tonight.
Yeah, we're really fortunate. I mean, we've had wonderful donations from folks all across the state, first of all. So thanks to everybody for doing that. But these are items I would love to go do. And they're items that you just can't go buy somewhere else. These are really unique to this auction.
So here's item number one tonight. It's an opportunity to go to a home in Playa del Carmen. It's given to us by the Coors family. Doug and Carolyn. Carolyn's on our board. It's an 8-person trip. So for 1 week, you can go down and stay at their home in Playa del Carmen. It's a remarkable gift.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you love to be there in January, your feet in the sand and a drink in your hand and just enjoying Mexico? I think it's a great auction item.
It's a great item. Again, Carolyn's on our board, so they will work with you to find an agreeable time to use it. Thank the family for that donation. Remarkable gift. Item number 2 tonight, we've got a great item number 2. Tell us about our second item.
Yeah, this is fun. And this is something we've done before, and it's the Lowell company. It's just a wonderfully generous company based out of Duluth, but their stuff is sold all over the world. And if you've seen their furniture, it's incredibly well designed, it's high end, and it's indestructible. And so I would love to have some of these at my cabin or somewhere else. It's just wonderful long-term kind of furniture that you'd love to have around.
So they're Adirondack chairs, and Chris, I will tell you, I've been an auctioneer for 25 years, and I've never sold chairs that have a bottle opener. So you can open your beer when you're sitting there.
Yeah, you don't even have to get up. Just put the cooler next to you, crack that. There's 2 chairs, a table. What more do you need?
And you and I are agreeing to come try them out.
Yeah, that's part of the package.
It is a part of the package. The price went down right now. It's a $1,700 value, so please bid on item number 2. Item number 3, I need to do a huge shout out to Beth Dooley. She's a James Beard award-winning chef. That's a big deal. We sold this item last year. It's the strongest selling item that we've ever sold at the Minnesota Land Trust event. Remarkable opportunity. She's put together a dinner for 8.
Yeah, wonderful opportunity not only to go eat some local food from a wonderful chef, more importantly, she comes out and tells you about the food, kind of its history and the heritage behind it and the local connection. So it's a wonderful experience, and it's something that I think people will remember for the rest of their lives.
I've gotten to know Beth personally over the years. She's super supportive of the community. She wants to do this item and does this because she cares about the Land Trust, cares about our mission. So again, a personal thank you to Beth Dooley for this donation. This is a great item. And Chris, I will say, in my line of work, raising money for nonprofits, these in-home dinners are the strongest items that I sell. Item number 4 tonight is a classic, unique Minnesota item. Chris, you've been there. Tell us about the encampment trip.
Yeah, so Encampment Forest, if you're not familiar, it's that land between the 2 tunnels on the North Shore, essentially. It's right in that area, and it's a wonderful, magical place. It's kind of like that postcard. If you were going to send something to your friends or family of here's what the North Shore is like, this is the place. So it's got old-growth white pines, trails, lakeshore, a wonderful place to be, but also the cabin that Beth McClellan and Bill McClellan are donating the week stay at overlooks Encampment Island, just one of the best views you're going to get in Minnesota.
So the McClellans are supporters of ours. Thank you to Beth and Bill for this donation. It's a 1-week stay for 10 people. Again, you can work with them to find an agreeable date. Really a very unique item. Matter of fact, I don't think I've ever sold this other than at your event over my career. So thank you again to that family. Item number 5 tonight's a unique item. You're going to go to the other part of the state in southeastern Minnesota for a fly fishing experience.
Yeah, you heard me talk earlier about heritage brook trout and how beautiful southeast Minnesota is. Well, this is your chance. Go try your luck. And this is the experience in partnership with Patagonia and the Minnesota Land Trust. So just really unique experience there. And we have guides from both entities that are going to take you down, no matter what your skill level is. So, if you're a real beginner, they'll help you. If you're an advanced person, it'll be great. So either way, you're going to win. And it's going to be paired with a stay at Ken and Terry Visger's place, which is called, it's called Bed and Make Your Own Damn Breakfast kind of place. So it's a wonderful protected property that you'll stay in the granary, just a unique experience and a wonderful package, along with some Patagonia gear.
Chris is agreeing to clean your fish, so the price just went up or down for that one. By the way, again, every time you bid, you're not only supporting us, you're helping us achieve these 100 projects. So thank you for bidding tonight in our premiere section. Our final item tonight, very unique item, truly a famous Minnesotan. Jim Brandenburg has put together a package for us, the famous photographer, of course. Chris, tell us about package number 6.
Yeah, so if you've ever seen the book Brother Wolf or Nature 365, the property that you get a chance to go to with this auction item is that property where these photographs were taken. And I've been fortunate to spend a lot of time in the Boundary Waters and paddle all around the Lake Superior. This is one of the most remote and beautiful properties I've ever seen. So just a unique experience to visit that property, but maybe more importantly, get to spend some time with Jim and Judy and see their award-winning home, Ravenwood. So kind of a wonderful experience, again, that you just don't get anywhere else.
So Chris, we have one final thing before the end of our program.
Yeah, we need to do that, but I did want to mention one thing on all those auction items, Glenn, and that is that we're going to try to be as COVID flexible as we can. So anybody bidding should just be aware we're going to try to work with them to find the dates that line up, knowing that we don't know if we can use it this year, but we're going to make it work. So we have one last thing to do, though, and that is you're going to be my helper here. I'm going to grab my cookie jar because we promised everybody who signed up before May 15th that they would be in the drawing for a door prize. So that's what we're going to do now. And I need you to draw names for me, Glenn.
So here's the first one.
Yep. So the winner of the morning inspiration package is Michael B. Way to go, Michael B.
Here's the second one.
Second one, this is the field trip package. That's James M. or Jim M. So congratulations.
And our final package.
Final package is the happy hour package. That's the fun one. Judith K. is our winner. So congratulations, Judith. So Glenn, I really want to thank you for your generosity over the years and for being a great co-host tonight. And I also want to thank all our wonderful sponsors who you'll see on the screen. We simply couldn't have done it without them. And special thanks to Walser Subaru and Rar Malting, who went the extra distance this year to be our top sponsors. And I'd also like to thank Michael Monroe for the great pre-concert from his log cabin home in Grand Marais. And now I'd like to introduce two great Minnesota musicians who are going to take us out tonight. Alan Sparhawk and Mimi Parker, who were founding members from the band Low. When they're not touring across the globe, Alan and Mimi find their peace on the trails and forests around their home in Duluth. We're so grateful that they have taken the time to share their gift with us tonight. And Glenn, just thanks again for being here.
It was great. Thank you, everyone, for rallying behind us and for all of your help and your generosity tonight. Thank you for your support. We've had a great event.
It's been fun. And from all of us at the Minnesota Land Trust, I can't wait to share the good news of what we were able to achieve together tonight. Thank you for all that you do, and be well.
Hello, everybody. This is Mimi, and I'm Alan. We're in the band we're in the band Low. We're from Duluth, Minnesota. Anyway, thank you for supporting the Minnesota Land Trust, and please enjoy this spring and summer.